So I need to make this video for the psychologist, whoever's doing this. I don't know how they do it, but it's like they can almost tell what I'm thinking. And I don't know if it's because they have hidden cameras or they can kind of premeditate of what I'm thinking because of the abuse of the electronic devices and then try to brainwash me. But whatever it is that's going on, I don't think this has anything to do necessarily with psychologists. I think it's someone that's just trying to brainwash me and trying to cleanse me of the wrongdoings that Ken and Sarah and Kenneth did. I know Ken Cooper's no longer alive, but Kenneth Cooper that worked for the radio station. He was the primary horrors of leading up so that nothing but bad things would continue to be covered up and everyone would maul me apart and basically manipulating me. But I talked about this house that I'm living at and how this black guy over here, what he's doing is he portrays himself like Kenneth Cooper. So what they do in this entire house is they portray themselves like someone in my life that I have known. My dad's sister is a guy right across from me. He tries to portray her face so that you get personalized. So I talk about that I didn't know that she was my sister. And one of the things that they do is, I don't know who tells a psychologist, I don't know who is telling the people the dark psychology to do to me, to brainwash me. But what they'll do is they'll make sure that they'll personalize it, and to make it personal instead of me brushing things off, so that it violates me at a very personal level. So this guy over here, looks like Miranda, so he'll portray, but my sister was a girl. And so, they get these people to portray themselves so that I identify and relate myself to these people. Because, to my understanding, I don't think this is just necessarily cleaning up or fixing. They're just wanting to cover up the story and brainwash the story because they know they got my mother and just totally like a stupid bitch. Like just some stupid guttering bitch. They can manipulate, do whatever they want to her kids. They did it for so many years, and this is going to go the way they want it. This isn't has to do any with psychologists trying to fix things. I don't believe it is. Or at least a lot of it is. And what I'm trying to get to this story is this is very serious. Now, my mother would like to know this. Frankie would like to know this. And I don't know who the psychologists are who would really want to know about this, but it's crucially important that they do know this. Now, when I was dying in a hospital and I was throwing up, you got to be very careful with who you bring into a hospital, especially when there's dilemmas that they want to get away with. Now, this is what I call the devil's work. This is very evil of what Sarah Cooper did. And nobody wants to say this because obviously, Sarah Palin was over at the White House, the President of Washington, D.C., not the White House, but at the Congress. And I went over there and there's all these situations of attention that's going on that they don't want anybody to know about. But the day will come, where I'm going to be deceased one day. And I'm going to get sick. And as often as I smoke cigarettes and not allowed to lift weights, it's not going to matter how much healthy I eat. So I think it's important because my mother would desperately want to know this. But she's not in any good mental state. My mother is not in any kind of way where she can take care of herself and has been. And so they're manipulating her. Basically, it's just a free game. Whatever they want to put on her table, whatever they want to steal, whatever they're going to make up, she's going to be forced to go along with it because my mother has some sort of, she's forgetting a lot of things, a lot of sort of dementia. And so they kept me out of the picture because they knew I could solely protect and defend my mother and say what had happened to her. But they didn't want anybody to know about Frankie being raped so many times and the guy that had, because Michael Jackson, I met Michael Jackson when I was a kid, and they didn't want to get into a political situation. So basically they killed me off and killed my mother off in order to make sure that they secured their position, and they did. That's what the sole reason why. So I talk about Miguel. Michaela, I don't know if you can watch these videos or not, but Miguel, everyone knows, the whole world knows that this guy molested Frankie and raped him. And I can't even remember that he did, if I got anal sex from this guy, but I want to say that I did at some point, or did some sort of oral sex, not knowing what the fuck was going on, because I was so young. I was about 3 or 4 years old. And I talked about this before, so I'm not trying to bring up, I'm not trying to throw gasoline into the fire or anything like that. But what I want to say is, now, when I was dying in the hospital, Sarah Cooper, I talked about Sarah and Ken Cooper knew about Frankie being molested when they came over, when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and they didn't tell my mother and they didn't tell my father. So how horrible can you make a person look if they find out that they work for the police department and they were a detective and their son works at a radio station, and all these years they knew about it, and Sarah Cooper saying that, they're just holy people and good people, and did nothing from a kid that was being raped. And then when it came to make a profitable gain, they manipulated the situation to the authorities, to whoever bought my mother a house and helped my mother with her other children, to make her and her family look like they were heroes, and they weren't. So your character would be completely abolished. People, it's like a priest, a priest that becomes a priest, and all of a sudden it turns out he was molesting little kids. You don't ever really recover from that ever again. So they don't want anybody to know. But I want to make this video because from my mother. And I was dying in the hospital, and I had Sarah Cooper, and this is before I could even remember Sarah Cooper or Ken Cooper even knowing about it. And Kenneth knows about this because he started to do very tactical shit inside his apartment when I was conversating him about trying to cover up, not thinking that I wouldn't figure out or knew that they were involved with knowing that this guy had raped Frankie. And they didn't want to say anything because his dad didn't do anything, and neither did Sarah. And so they were very nasty to us when we were kids, very nasty, to my mother especially. I mean, my mother, I watched it happen in front of me. I watched my mother be treated like garbage, but it doesn't matter because, whatever, but as far as the video I want to make on this, as I was very sick, and I'm dying in a hospital, and I'm having my bone marrow transplant, and they had to give me chemotherapy, and I began throwing up. I began throwing up uncontrollably to the point where I was dry heaving, and I don't think I ate any food for like 6 or 7 days. It was like anywhere from 5 to 7 days I didn't have anything to eat. I could not eat anything. I couldn't even look at food without throwing up, and I kept on any saliva. I don't even know if I could drink anything, and I don't even recall being able to drink any fluid at all because they had IV in my blood. And I had been throwing up for probably about 3 days, and I hadn't eaten for about 5. And Sarah Cooper happened to be there, and she had a bucket, like how the ones that they give out in the hospitals when you're throwing up, and they just give you this little plastic bin so that you throw up in. Well, she came over to me and she handed it to me and goes like this, like say this is the throw up bin. She goes like this. She goes, oh. And she intentionally doesn't make eye contact. She's like trying to deliver and look over toward that way, and then hand it to me. And the reason is because you become so entangled with emotion and fearful of your own passing and death that you want to be able to utilize that situation in order to abolish that it ever happened, and then this person really didn't do anything at all when Frankie was being molested and raped. Okay? that's how frightening it is. I believe that nobody, for any kind of reason, should have ever done this, because what makes it so disturbing is that I was thinking of earlier today. I mean, before I made to turn this video on, I talk about that this black guy. I don't know his name, but they characterize every person in my life. Like, this guy over here looks like behaves and tries to behave and generate his soul and the character of Ken Cooper. This guy down the hall tries to generate himself like he's like a Pakistani guy, exactly like Frankie. So the way that Frankie behaves, the way that Frankie says yes, the way that he says no, the way that he talks, the way that he laughs, so they're profiling them, and then they put them in my environment so that I relate exactly to what they're doing and think that that's them and their character. So it brainwashes me, and it dilutes me, and it dilutes my mother. So anyway, this guy over here, he portrays himself very specifically like Kenneth Cooper. And I don't say anything. I try to always keep things polite and passive. But it's very stubbornly, I know this individual wants to target my mother and Frankie. Because all he's wanting to do is protect Kenneth. From the minute that I remember around this person, this person doesn't give a shit if I have massive strokes and I'm bleeding cancer out of my ass. This individual isn't concerned of those types of things. Because as much as I let them go and want to move on from those things, they just want to make sure that their team and their homosexual and gay story gets told the way that they want it, even if it's a complete lie and it hurts my mother. They don't care. So whoever's doing this is playing very dark psychology, very evil shit to implement me, to put me mentally where they want to put me. So I found that very weird, and I was thinking to myself, like the first month that I moved in, I remember this guy over here that behaves like Kenneth. Remember, they're very calculating. They try to look to see, okay, I'm Kenneth, and he thinks I'm Kenneth. This is what I'm going to do to him to make him, brainwash him. And he sort of leaning against the table, and he has his back toward me. He goes, "Yeah, we don't do that over there." And he goes like this. And so, one of the things that I was thinking of just now, and I vaguely think about this before, but I don't know very little of the story, but it's it's very disturbing. Frankie many years ago, when me, Frankie, and Julian, my dad had just died, we had seen Ken and Sarah Cooper in, probably 8-10 years. We had seen him in like 7 or 8 years. We had nothing to do with them. My mother didn't want to associate with him. My mother said, hang up the phone. My mom was yelling over the phone. My mother was so protective, and my mother never talked bad about, but as a kid, even my mother would do that. So anyway, I was there to watch it. So what happens is, we're walking with me, Ken Cooper, Frankie, and Julian. And we're walking through this warehouse, and Ken Cooper owned this warehouse, and he said he had a bunch of Mexican people there working, for him. I just didn't really pay too much attention, other than just walking around, take a look, and other than, that's his business, that's his company. And it was like 3 or 4 other owners that own it. He took Frankie. I remember we opened one of the doors, and this guy had like a knife, and it was a white guy. And you got to understand that the people that are in charge are white guys. They're like white guy golfers, like that kind of character guys, like the white supremacists that you can tell by looking at them. Everything gets open to them. They get a desk job. They get high pay rate. They're the guys that always drives the convertibles to the golf course and drives around with all these white women and these white people that classify themselves as a higher white supremacy. Now, they're not the Ku Klux Klan, but the white rich people. Like, you can tell that is a high class type of character of, that those kind of people, like the rich golfers. Anyway, we open the door, and Julian even sees this. Julian, I want to say, saw this. And the guy pulls out, he just looking at the TV screen, he pulls out a knife and he goes, and he looks at Frankie. And it wasn't, he didn't pull it out like he was angry. He pulled it out like looking at the TV screen and going like this, and then looking at Frankie and at the computer screen. And I thought to myself, why? I wonder why he's doing this. This doesn't make any sense. And he didn't look like he was mad. He didn't have a reason to pull out a knife, and he was in a desk, small room, small office room. And I remember Frankie just kind of went like this, and I kind of looked at him like, and I was like, why do you pull a knife out? And I thought maybe he was going to open an envelope or, I don't know, cut open a box or something. He was behind the desk, and it was in a small room about this same size. And I don't understand what he does. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, and I remember Frankie kind of looked, and he looked shocked, and I could tell that it had something to do with Frankie. I don't know what it was. It had something to do with Frankie, and I had no earthly idea. No earthly idea. And I don't know anything of it. So we kind of move out the way, and Frankie kind of looks startled, like it made him remember something that I don't know, or Julian doesn't know, or like it just didn't seem right. So they're walking in the warehouse, and I think me and Julian go to we kind of move to the left a little bit to go into the truck, or we're doing something talking, and Ken Cooper and Frankie are talking, and they go to the back where there is a patio, and I noticed, it was maybe just like 3 or 4 minutes that you go in there waiting. I'm like, oh, what's going on? I guess that going to show them some more of the warehouse or whatever property. We're already on the side of the warehouse, and I walk over there to kind of look at Frankie and see what's going on. And I see Ken Cooper. They're standing on the dock, where the 18-wheelers are, and this is kind of in an open area, country area where there isn't many warehouses. It's open fields, and I remember Frankie I looked over, and Frankie goes, "No, it's okay," and he was like crying, sniffling, and I don't know what this entailed. Like, I have no idea what this entailed. I still to this day I don't know. And I thought, since Frankie had been molested so many times, is it possible at any point, is it possible that Frankie could have, approached, a situation where he tried prostituting, getting a male prostitute? Like, I don't know, I don't know, what it is in foreign countries or what's going on, or if something like that could have happened where Frankie could have approached a little kid. I don't think, maybe it was an adult prostitution and it was like a sting or something, or for whatever they were observating him, someone knew about it. And because I still don't know what that is. I wonder if because of Frankie, there's a lot of people out there. Let me tell you something. My biological father, to my understanding, he was about 20. He was like in his early 20s. And my mom was like 18 years old. But I remember him saying that he was in his early 20s. Now, I don't know if my mother's been lying about her age, because I still question how old my mother is. Internet sites and everything says that she's what the age she says. She's 67 years old. But I don't know. I don't even know. I always question still to this day whether my mother ever told me the truth, because when she used to tell me when she got married, she'd give me different ages. Every time I told her, like several times that I talked about with her from her coming to Mexico, she gave me different stories of what age she was. And she said that she was, oh no, I was 15 years old. But she wasn't forgetting things. And the reason she told me that she wanted, I guess, to sound like an adult and not make it look like that my biological father was having sex with a 13-year-old girl and he was in his 20s and got her pregnant. So I don't know what that situation is. I don't know how old my mother was, but I just know that my biological father, who I'm named after, is named Hector, is someone that was in his 20s for sure. I remember he was in his 20s. I wouldn't say that he was older than 28 years old, but he was in his 20s. And I don't remember, he gave a number how old he was to my father. And but you got to keep in mind, he didn't show up into the picture until I was about 5 years old. So if my mom was 25 when she gave birth to me, you know, if my mom was 25, she gave birth to me, and my mother was like, how old was my mother? My mother would have been like 20 years old. My mother gave birth to me, I think, when she was in her early 20s. So I don't know. You have to do the math. You have to figure this out. But it would have made my mother and him, that he got my mother pregnant when she was like at least 18 or 19 years old, if not younger. But my mother always told me that she was, of age. So I don't know what age that was, but I believe it was reasonable to an age, because it does make my biological father kind of look like a child molester. Kind of the idea that, he did. I don't think a child molester. I don't think the situation is that, because he was in his 20s, and when he was with my mother was like in her early 20s, but I was already 5 years old. So if my mother was 20 years old and I was already 5, that means my mom had to be about 15 or 16 years old, and he's in his 20s. So, well, obviously, Raymond Palomo, who is my father who raised me, was 56 years old when he married my mother when she was 19 years old. And he was having sex with my mother. What does that look like? Well, what does that entail? What does that interpretation entail? But it is the family that I grew up in. It's the understanding in the world that I lived in. But the reason I say this is because, did Frankie ever do anything? Because I don't know what that meant. I don't know why Frankie could have been huckling tears, because the way that he behaved is that if he got caught, you ever seen what do they call it, To Catch a Predator, on the TV show that was real famous for catching sexual predators and putting them on camera? I think that could possibly have been something like that could have possibly happened. And I think it's important for me to talk about, because first of all, that means that if Ken Cooper, if that's what he was talking about, or if he was talking about Miguel, he was basically saying, oh, by the way, sorry for not doing anything, and this is what we did, and what yada yada, because he didn't want to get caught. He didn't want to look like he was a bad monster, because he's enjoying the life with his own family, and here you have a police officer and nobody did shit, and I get discredited. And the reason I want to talk about this story is because they're going to change this story, and they're going to try to take any more credit that I had ever done for Frankie and give this more to Kenneth Cooper, because Ken Cooper's no longer alive anymore, right? So keep in mind that Kenneth is the one that picks up all that baggage and all that gold. And so, since the gay community had raped my brother so many times, they don't want anybody to know. And the police officers entirely covered up. But I think it's important because I love my mother very much. I don't know who or what is going on. I do believe it is too late. I do believe it is too late. That's for sure, because whoever got involved didn't care. Whoever's listening to these videos, if any, I truly, honestly believe there's about a 1% chance anyone gives a shit about our family, about who got raped, and all this money that got stolen, and all the tragedies that happened, because their objective was to basically get rid of human life, and that was mine, primarily, and play my mother nothing more than a dumb, stupid puppet, and that's how they have my mother still to this fucking day. So her identical triplets are being involved, and they're helping brainwash, and they're helping get away with what they did. But I think it's important to talk about this because there's some also very disturbing things I want to talk about. But I don't know if that's the case. But the reason I think it's so important to say is because nobody would know this information. The only way you're getting the information is if you're going to Kenneth directly, and you're going to Sarah directly, and you went to Ken directly and got this information, and then they tell the gays, and then they come at me for it. So that's why I'm making a video of it. There's something else I also want to talk about. My mom's triplets, but this is my biological mother. Well, my biological mother, I haven't seen, had no communication with in person since this video. I mean, since this picture. I have not seen my mother since that photo, and that was about 5 years ago. That photo was taken when I was about 37 years old. That was 5 years ago. That's the last time I saw my biological mother. They only have me communicate with her triplet sisters, and let me tell you, I don't know who's telling her to do this. It is absolutely frightening. I know Frankie wouldn't like this at all either. I know Frankie wouldn't like it would be terrifying, the fact that even if they're identical triplets and they're talking to your own son like that, Frankie wouldn't like this. I know how Frankie is. I don't think Frankie would have been. I know Frankie wouldn't like it. And I went to eat at a restaurant, and she's been doing this on several occasions. But we're eating at Popeyes, and she kept on putting the chicken bones on the dinner table and making a mess like it was throwing a corpse. And she knows that antagonizes, and that has a relation to my dead sister. Because so much of all the intention that's going on is that my biological little girl sister, who died tragically many years ago and didn't get a proper burial. I don't know her name. She didn't have a picture in our house of her. She was just basically just gotten rid of and thrown away. There wasn't a prayer. There wasn't a moment of silence. There was nothing. And I talked about this. And I think that at least this little girl deserves that. I do believe that this little girl at least deserves a moment of silence and a farewell goodbye to and a proper, some kind of ceremony of her passing with my immediate family. And that never happened. And I say this because her sisters know that I don't want to talk, because when I go over there, I call her mom, but I know it's not my mother, it's her triplet. But I'm bothered by it because I don't want to be talking about my dead sister to her like I'm trying to hurt my mother. But that's exactly what the psychologists and what these people are trying to do, because they're trying to start a war between me and my mother's triplets as much as they can, and they're telling her to say really awful dark shit. And I mean really dark shit. Like, I'm not kidding. Some of the things that they're getting her to do, I'm questioning whether, if there are professional psychologists that were trying to resolve the situation, reevaluate the situation, if they have my mother's sisters over there to evaluate them, how they behave, because maybe they're not safe around if something bad happened to Frankie, or that would be safe to be putting them around my mother, or they did something that they should be questioning whether, is this a good idea to, just let this go on, let this go by. And I was at the hospital, and my mother's twin, and I tell her, and I said that, yeah, whenever I get a CNA license, I may move out of state. I don't think I will, but I might for a short assignment, just for a couple months or something. And she's reading the newspaper. She picks up the newspaper. My mother doesn't know how to read the news. My mother doesn't know how to read, okay? She picks up the newspaper, and she's holding it up and the people inside the hospital clinic waiting room, they're all looking at her, and they know that my mother can't read, and she's like looking at the newspaper like she's pretending like to have some literacy, and I'm looking at my mother as she's kind of like has this, like this, but when she says, she goes, "Oh, you're gonna go to the CNA? You got the okay, goodbye, bye," and she's like almost wishing me a farewell death. Like, you're gonna go die, get cancer. You're gonna go die. Okay, see ya. I have no problem getting rid of your worthless life. And she just starts behaving this way, and it gets very dark. Like when I mean very, very cynical, like behavior, like it feels very death wishing, and I'm very disturbed by it. I know that, like I was eating at the restaurant, and she keeps putting a huge amount of trash, and I know that she wouldn't necessarily do this normally. I understand that's my mom's sister, identical triplet, but she knows that the reference of this situation is my dead sister. And because my mother, when I was a kid, my mother used to always, she talked about my father, and she was in reference of my sister, and she says, "Oh no, why you go to the cemetery? Ahí están más todos sus huesitos ahí, su cursito." And that in Spanish, that's saying, why are you going to the cemetery? The person that's dead there is nothing but a bag of bones there. There's nothing there. It's just nothing but bones there. And that is a scary thing to hear from a mother that buried a child or buried anybody. Just sort of, and it wasn't in a humorous way. It was just like, I'll do whatever I have to do to survive, and just, you're nothing but a bag of bones, Hector. Like, and so my mother never said that to me, but like, I was nothing but a worthless bag of bones. When I'm eating at a dinner table and they're telling my mother exactly what to do, and she's acting very cynical, like she's acting kind of like, I don't know, it's just kind of cynical crazy. Like, it kind of makes me nervous whether my mother's, I don't think my mother's capable of, I don't know if they're just telling her exactly what to say, and also the combination of going through the stress of telling her what to do is causing this to her to be even more death wishing against me. Like, Hector, if you die, then you're worthless. We're going to prepare your death in your coffin, and it's very much fueled this way, and it makes me very nervous because my mother never behaved this way when I was around her. My mother, when I was growing up with her, and as I overknown her, she would have never been saying things like that. Like, especially as an adult. She wouldn't have been, like, just preparing my funeral. Even though my mom said some dark things, I know how my mother is. But this isn't my mother. This is my mother's sister's identical triplet. And so I get bothered by this because she's saying things that I know that she knows she's referencing the dead little girl. And we're like, she has a bag of bones, and like, she'll put the trash outside the door, like when I get there, and like, I'm throwing the little girl away in a trash can, because I said that so many times that it was like this little girl got thrown away in a garbage can. Like, I know that's so horrible, monstrous, but there was no ceremony, there was no like prayer, there was no flowers, there was no settling, letting it settle and departing gracefully. I don't want to say gracefully, I don't know, like a ceremony. Anyone that passes away, I always believe, deserves a moment of some words to share upon that life. Even people that get put on death row, people that have been in prison for a long time, they share words about these individuals that they bury with just numbers in an empty field, cemetery. Every person that gets found in the Holocaust, still to this day, they're still searching for bodies. They give these people a ceremony. There was no ceremony for this princess that was walking in front of my house all the time. There was nothing. It was gloomy in the house. Our house was like gloomy. It was very much that way. Like, like it was just dark. It was not, I wouldn't say dark like scary dark. It was glooming like a dark cloud. Like it was like a dark cloud, and it wasn't sunny outside necessarily, and it was kind of gloomy. And but I want to talk about this because you know I get really bothered by that. It scares me that my mother's identical triplet is like she's preparing and exercising my mortality and death in a way to dispose of me in a glorious, humorous way. That my life doesn't have value to this person. She's only there because she has to, and only because she's waiting to get rid of me and just take from me and not really say that I'm part of this family. And it's very scary when someone is that way, because this is someone who looks like my biological mother but isn't my biological mother. It's her triplet. So I don't know. I honestly also believe that the psychologist or whatever they're telling her to do and sharing each word, they're putting a lot of stress on her. I really do believe that I really do believe that she recognizes that what she's saying is wrong and it shouldn't be said, but she's saying it simply because the psychologist entirely saying, it's okay, just do this, it's okay, we just scum the little girl Miranda, don't worry, it's psychology, don't worry, it's psychology, this is what we're going to do, Hector's a problem here, tell him he's going to die, tell him he's going to get cancer, tell him you're going to throw him in a nursing home. And so she's sort of so very nasty, vulgar toward me in a way that feels very sort of death wishing, like my life is supposed to come to an end in a way that it doesn't have any value and it won't affect this person in any kind of way that is normal, because was just a problem in this world. I don't have a purpose, and all I was just a problem. And it bothers me because that's entirely what the communication is. And when she starts kind of giving these sort of sickening looks like your life is worthless, like I can just tell that this person, I don't think they want me around. And and it's an emotional way. I think this person is just wanting me there for an emotional punching bag to abuse the situation, to be used as a weapon to clean up whatever mess that happened and what they did. Because why, in this video that I want to make, why is it, of all the things that are going on, she can't be, y'all don't tell her to be positive, or to encourage me to go to school, or to tell me more about these electronic devices that's harming you, or harming her? Why aren't you saying, instead it's like, Hector, everything that's fueling off is to help Kenneth, because they know all the details, is to be very vulgar toward me, and they tell her to say real nasty things to me, like very death wishing, very like disposing and scumming me to the situation. Like I'm sitting at a dinner table just for a few minutes after resting, and she starts spitting toward like near the table, like to antagonize me. And I have to say something. What are you spitting for? What are you doing? And I don't say nothing after about the third or fourth time, thinking that, and she's doing it on purpose to antagonize, and that's not what my mother used to do, or this is not what my mother's twin was doing before. But it's very frightening. I feel, I don't feel like I could trust this person. I don't think this person will get very affected if something were to happen to me. I think that she has been trained to dispose of me. She may love her child, Marco and Julian. I think she really does care about Marco's little kid. I do that. I really do take care of love. As me, just trash. Just worthless. I've already used you for resources. It's just you're hanging around and just bothering me, and I'm just going to use you as an emotional punching bag to make myself feel better. And I'm going to here to clean up, and because everything that she keeps on saying keeps cycling with the information about helping to benefit Kenneth Cooper and the Cooper family, when I don't want to be talking about that. Why is it my mother saying, my mother's identical twin sister, triplet, saying, "I'm so happy, Hector, that you got a high school diploma. I'm so happy you're going to go to school. I'm so happy. I could take care of myself, and I already have things arranged. But I'm glad you are doing something for yourself, and I'm glad you're wanting to go help other people. And if you ever, if Julian and Frankie ever need help with any medical information, at least I know you do. I'm glad you're going to school, and it's none of that. Like, honestly, I don't even feel like going to school. I'm just doing this to do this for my mother because of the situation, and she has not influenced me to ever attend any education at all, let alone in the hospital field, medical field. Like, I feel so discouraged, but I'm going to do what I can to try to earn this and probably call it quits. I'm going to do this to honor my father because he was a registered nurse. I'm going to do this in case my mother ever needs my help, and I need to do it for myself as well because I'm a prior cancer patient. I'm 42 years old. At least I can get my affairs in order a little bit better on my own without having to ask for my mother's family or people, and I can make decisions because I have a CNA license that would help just a little bit more to take care of myself. But she shows no content at all. Like, it's not even trying to, like, as positive as I'm looking for answers to be positive and happy for me, it's like she keeps telling me and sabotaging me in her attitude to just fucking go live on the streets and go live like a bum. Don't ever go to school. Go work in a hot warehouse for the rest of you're a nothing. You're a nobody. You're just here begging for money. You're just so worthless. So you're going to die anyway. When are you going to die? Huh? You're going to give me some money? Oh, no. I know you're just a thief, Hector. You just want to take from me, from Celestina and Raymond Palomo. And that's entirely what I feel every time I go there. But I always try to focus on, like, Jesus, help me to stay positive with this. Jesus, help me. He knows I'm trying. And I want to reach out to my mother, but I feel scared. I feel like if I were to have a stroke, a brain hemorrhage, and I would be in a hospital, I honestly, really, truly believe my mother, she's gone through so much that it's just to dispose of me, and because of what they're telling her, because what they're telling her to do, they got her like this. I'm telling you, I'm getting in the car. There's a pile of cars that are driving in front of us, all following us. In the front and the behind. In the front of us and behind us. You could look to see. There's like 15 cars that are in front of us that then leave an open gap in front of them where there's no cars, and they're all following us. All of us. I mean, it's fucking crazy looking. Like, it looks like, you know how celebrities show up in their cars and they have cars follow them? That's what it looks like. Like, I go to the hospital, waiting in the parking lot with her. There's people already waiting for us. They're waiting for us when we get to the front door. My mother's 67 years old. My mother's twin and triplet is 67 years old. Should not be going through this. I should be bringing diplomas and hearing good news to my mother, and you're telling her to dispose of me. And I don't know what the situation, because what's the problem with being positive? Mom, let's forget about Miguel. Let's forget about the past. Let's think positive, good things. And it's not it. Everything that she's been exercising in words is very vulgar and nasty. Like, I just feel intimidated. Like, I feel scared for my life. Like, whatever it is that you're telling her to practice with this dead little girl and throwing chicken bones and sort of practicing this is only creating another monster in this person. And that's why they're doing this. Look, my mother came out of the hospital with one eye patch, and she was walking. I was helping her walk to the front door about 5 days ago. And I'm holding her as I'm walking her to the front desk with an eye patch. There's a guy right next door that lives right next door to her. It was a black guy. He was like 65 years old, and he's in his wheelchair. And he always seems to kind of try to put attention toward my mother, and when I show up, like he's controlling her, he wants to be involved in her life. And he kind of looks crazy, like he kind of looks kind of like he smoked crack or something, but he's old. And I have a folder, and I'm picking up my mother, like I'm holding my mother, she holds onto my arm just to get to the front door, and I drop the folder, and this guy's happened to stand right in front of the door, and he picks it up like this, like he's picking it up like this. He goes, "You want me to give it to you?" Like he's looking at me, and he goes, "You want me to give it to you?" Like nasty, like he's picking up the dead little girl and says, "Do you want me to give you this dead little girl? Do you want me to give you your dead dad? He's just money, isn't he?" I don't even know who these guys, but I know that everyone knows about the business that's going on with my mother and my father who raised me, and his money disappearing, and my dead sister. But this is what he does. And he did this while my mother has one eye patch, and I'm helping her walk to the door, that this guy gets an attitude while he's doing this while I'm there. This is how scary this shit is. You should not be practicing because you know what that symbolizes, and you know what that is. And I feel like whatever it is they're trying to get my mother to say all kinds of monstrous things toward me that it makes me very nervous, because I see much of my mother and her twin, but I still don't know what the story to this is. But I don't know if it's ever going to get it resolved, but I have to at least try. But as much as pressure as I've gotten from my mother's twin now is, I'm only going to work and get this CNA and for my family and for myself, and I hope that I can go to school and it all goes through and I attend and earn their certificate and pass the test. But if anything, I'll probably maybe work 1 assignment, 2 assignments, and I'm going to completely choose a different career. Not in the medical field anymore. I'm not going to be allowed to. I know that I'm not going to be allowed to. So I'm going to just do this just for the caring for my biological mother, in case something happened to Frankie or Jillian, and myself, and also basically myself as well. So that, I'm just that more be able to take care of myself. And it's a compassionate job where you connect with people. But I'm going to be choosing probably eventually something else. I will do maybe 1 or 2 assignments if that is earned, but the number one dream goal is just to have that certificate, license, and that's what I'll be doing. Have that, and mission accomplished, dream accomplished, and then I'm going to be doing something else. I don't know what. Take another course, welding course, I don't know yet. Computer class, probably not, I don't know. Plumbers, I don't know what class, but I'll do that. But I definitely don't feel any support or motivation toward my mother's identical triplet. I don't, and she has been putting me down with that situation. Like, she is not concerned. Like, I wouldn't say not concerned. She doesn't want me to. Like, she's telling me things to hurt myself, like to not better my life. That's how she's talking to me. Like, I don't want you to do things to better your life. I want you to be in a worse position in life so I can continue scumming you with words, and how basically an emotional punching bag to tell you your life isn't very valuable. It's not that valuable to me. You're just more of a problem than anything else. But I hope that somebody's watching these videos, because whatever they're telling her from word to word, and the people that are circling around the situation are poisoning the shit out of my mother's identical triplet to make this very personalized for themselves and to brainwash the situation. But I don't think